Hi, it's Mark Bossert from Top Local Lead Generation. We're talking with David Fairbairn. He's a home inspector here in Vancouver. How are you doing today, David?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Mark. How are you?
I'm good. So we're going to talk about commercial building inspections. So what's different?
What's different from a standard home inspection is probably what you're wondering. And with commercial building inspection, there's actually there's quite a few differences from a standard home inspection. Most of it is to do with the complexity of the building itself. When you have a commercial building, the equipment you're going to come across and the building designs that you're going to come across are, if you're a first-time commercial property buyer or if you're leasing a commercial property and you don't have experience with them, there can be a lot of things that you don't understand. So you need somebody who's trained to has experience with these buildings and is trained in these systems. So first of all, the big thing is complexity. We see a lot of industrial things. You've got completely different structure design. You've got if you're buying a restaurant, you're going to see uh, you know industrial kitchen equipment, and a lot of these things you may need maybe an education in. So that's the big thing, is education with the commercial buildings. The next thing that's different about commercial building inspections versus a standard home inspection is the type of report that we would provide to you. When you're getting a commercial building inspected, you're hopefully getting a report that you're going to give to your lender, right? And they have pretty specific guidelines on what they're looking for. And one of those things that we don't really see with a standard home inspection that we do see in the commercial world is cost estimating. So actually, on the inspection report, you're actually going to be able to get cost estimate for the work. Usually, I give a range of it's going to be between this much and this much to correct this defect. And you're actually going to have cost estimating on the summary breakdown at the end of the inspection report. So that's a huge difference as well.
So how long does it take?
It can be anywhere from a few hours to an entire day. And it really depends on the size of property and the type of property. For instance, if you need a warehouse inspected, they're large, but they're fairly simple structures. So they're not going to take, they're not going to take an amount of time to measure it with the number of square feet, right? So you're actually going to have a little bit of a shorter inspection, just depending on what's in there. If you've got if you've got an office building and you need every single office evaluated, obviously that's going to take a bit of time. You've got a lot of interior furnishings and things like that to work around. So it really depends on the type of building and the use of the building. And of course, if you have a vacant commercial building, that's going to be a lot faster to inspect, because we don't have to work around staff and furnishings and equipment, right? Sometimes with commercial buildings, the customer will actually request it to be at night. And this actually happens usually when there's an existing business and they don't want interruption of their day-to-day operations, so they bring in an inspector, overnight. And that does happen once in a while. And of course, we try to be flexible to accommodate that.
So how long until I get the report on my building?
If we do a report, usually we provide you with a digital report as well as an optional printed copy within about 48 hours of the inspection. So it's a fully typed out narrative report with photos, and of course there's a bit of time in there, and most of that time is based on the calculation of all the costs. So if we find an older building that has maybe it needs a new roof, or there's some facade work at the front of the building, we're going to have to work out the cost per square foot and your disposal costs and things like that, and put it into a usable number for you. So that's basically where that time frame comes in. In some buildings that are simple and there's not a huge amount of work to be done, we can get the report a little bit faster than that as well. So we try to do it as quickly as possible, but it's usually about 48 hours.
So what about cost?
Cost varies. The best way to get a cost on a commercial building inspection is to call us directly. It varies not only in the number of square feet, which is one of the things you find with a home inspection. It's almost completely based on square footage. And if there's an extra, maybe a laneway house in the backyard, we'll charge a little bit extra to look at the laneway house. And we sort of approach it the same way, but if you've got a vacant building, if it's depending on the use of the building, if you've got a metal plating facility, obviously we're going to have to bring in some contractors to take a look at a little bit more in depth. So it really depends on the use of the building. So the best way is to call us with a quote, and usually, for a small restaurant, you're probably looking at around 1,200. For a larger warehouse, it could be 1,000, just depending on basically the size of the building and what it's being used for.
What about things like soil contamination or water ingress or those sorts of things? Are you looking at that as well, or compliance with building codes?
Yeah, what we do is in terms of the soil contamination. I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of the time when you're purchasing commercial property, you're going to hire somebody to do a phase 1 environmental site assessment, or phase 1 ESA. Phase 1 ESA is basically an evaluation of possible contaminants on the site, soil conditions, things like asbestos, lead. They would cover a few of those issues as well. And for that reason, the commercial building inspector, we wouldn't address those issues directly. We would leave it up to the phase 1 ESA. We can help arrange that for you, but typically it's done through a different company. In terms of, you were wondering about water ingress. Water ingress is one of the most important concepts in building inspection, especially in the Lower Mainland. So we're obviously going to take a close look at water ingress issues. We're going to have a look at the roof. We use thermal imaging on the commercial building inspections, so scanning, below flat roofs, checking lot grading. So it's equally as important, if not more important, than with a standard home inspection to avoid water ingress.
Awesome. So we've been talking with David Fairbairn. He's a Vancouver building inspector and home inspector. You can reach him at 604-395-2795. Thanks a lot, David.
Thanks, Mark.